I had always been interested in abandoned buildings, and there was one place in particular that I had heard about that intrigued me more than any other. The abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. It had been closed down for years after reports of abuse and neglect of patients, but the building still stood, and the reminder of the darker side of mental health care. One summer afternoon, I decided to take a drive out to the asylum and take a look around. I parked my car on the road outside the entrance and walked up to the gates, which were chained shut. I could see the sprawling building beyond, covered in vines and graffiti. It was eerie and foreboding, but I couldn't resist the urge to explore. I climbed over the fence and made my way towards the building. As I got closer, I could see that some of the windows were boarded up, but others were broken and open, giving me a glimpse of the dark interior. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was musty and stale, and I could hear the sound of my footsteps echoing off the walls. I walked down a long corridor, past doors that were locked and bolted, and peered through the windows at the rooms beyond. Some of them were empty, but others contained rusted beds and broken chairs, a reminder of the patients who had once lived there. As I explored further, I began to feel uneasy. There was a sense of foreboding that seemed to permeate the building, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. But I pressed on, determined to see as much of the asylum as I could. I turned the corner and found myself in a large room with a high ceiling and peeling paint. In the center of the room was a large metal table surrounded by chairs. At first, I thought it might have been a common area or a meeting room, but as I looked closer, I saw that the table was covered in dried blood. My heart raced as I realized that this was not just an abandoned building, but a place of horror and violence. I tried to turn and run, but my feet seemed rooted to the spot. That's when I heard the sounds of footsteps coming from behind me. I turned around slowly and saw a figure in the shadows. It was a man, dressed in ragged clothes and holding a rusty knife. He was grinning at me, his teeth yellowed and crooked. I tried to run, but he was too fast, and soon he had me cornered.
"Welcome to the asylum,"
he said, his voice raspy and cold.
"You're not leaving here alive."
I fought back as best I could, but he was too strong. He pushed me down onto the table and held me there, the knife glinting in the dim light. I closed my eyes and prayed for someone to save me, but there was no one around. Just when I thought all was lost, there was a sudden commotion outside. The man looked up in surprise, and I took the opportunity to push him away and run towards the door. I burst through it and found myself face to face with a group of people in white coats. They were the staff of the asylum, come to investigate reports of trespassing. They had heard my screams and rushed to my aid. The man in the shadows was nowhere to be seen. I was taken to the hospital and treated for injuries, and when the police arrived, they searched the building and found evidence of a brutal serial killer who had been using the abandoned asylum as his hunting ground. The man was never caught, and the asylum was finally torn down, its dark history erased from the landscape. From that day on, I never ventured into abandoned buildings again. The horror that I had witnessed in that asylum had scared me for life, and I could never shake the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. But I knew that there were others out there, like the man in the shadows, who were drawn to the darkness of the unknown. The abandoned asylum was a reminder that there are some places that should remain abandoned, and some secrets that should never be uncovered. And as for me, I will never forget the terror of that day, and I always will be wary of the shadows and the secrets they conceal.